Welcome to History with Mrs. Q. On today's episode,
continuing our July 4th celebration, we're here at the Swetland house. This is Mark, our guide. So Mark, tell us about this room that we're in and all of these incredible artifacts in here.
Well, we are in the quote-unquote original house, the oldest part of the house. This dates from 1803, and where we are standing right now is was in fact the entirety of the Swetland homestead at one point. You had just this room. The ceiling above us was actually a little bit lower. There wasn't the portico window. There wasn't the extra doors. And the family lived here. Now,
right at that time, the whole family lived in one room with
yes,
a sleeping loft.
Yes, there was
above
a small
it, right?
loft. You could see on the floor there where the floorboards don't quite match up. There was just a tiny stairway to go up to the loft. And so you had Luke Swetland, who was the family patriarch who lived on a log cabin here before the house was even built. Then you had his son Belding and his wife Sally. They had 12 children. There also was Eli Swetland was here for a little while. There were people coming and going. So depending on what sources you read, there could have been between 9 and 16 people living just in these walls.
So let me ask you a novice question about this, because I'm new to the region. Is this part of the original Pennsylvania grant, or is this a part of the Connecticut grant?
No, this is Connecticut territory. Technically still should be Connecticut
I know,
territory.
a number of people have told me today that this is still Connecticut.
We will be here all day. Poor Vinny would be filming till the end of time.
I had a couple of people today say to me, long live Connecticut.
Long live Connecticut. No, they were indeed Connecticut settlers. They were part of the Susquehanna Company, as was Colonel Dennison, whose house is about a mile down the road. But they were neighbors. They were the two closest houses at the time.
So for people who don't know, and I found this to be really shocking, King Charles II, in his brilliance, deeded this land both to William Penn, right, and to a company from Connecticut called the Susquehanna Company. And they fought a series of wars against each other, didn't they?
There were 3 Yankee-Pennamite wars between the Connecticut Yankees and then, of course, the Pennamites from Philadelphia. Pennamite actually was a slur at the time.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
There were good Pennsylvanians and then there were Pennamites.
Right. And they would raid their camps, right? So they couldn't build their homes.
There was a series of raids. There was actually people were killed. If you go to Wilkes-Barre City Cemetery, there is the grave of a gentleman who was killed in the Yankee-Pennamite dispute. Because
and this, by the way, precedes the American Revolution for those of you guys.
And goes a little bit
goes
after.
into that was stunning to me. It kind of like gets suspended for the war, and then after the war, it starts up again.
A modern equivalent would be the Chinese Civil War. They united during World War II to fight the Japanese.
And then
we united during the American Revolution to fight the British, and then split up again. But a lot of the court cases and the lawsuits and the land disputes, the last of them were not settled until 1818.
That's fascinating.
So
and apparently many people here today who still consider themselves Connecticutans or whatever you call someone from Connecticut versus Pennsylvanians. I was fascinated at the other memorial, people telling me their loyalty still lies with Connecticut.
Now, did you notice at the event when the 109th came in, did you notice they had 2 flags?
Did they have Pennsylvania and Connecticut?
They have Pennsylvania and Connecticut. They are the only unit in any branch of the United States military, active or reserve, who's allowed to carry 2 flags.
Wow.
Because they descend from the 24th Connecticut, which was our original militia.
Right. I spoke to some of them today. So that is fascinating. So these were all the Connecticut people, the Susquehanna Company people through here.
This was one of the original 5 townships. And they're all names, Kingstown, Kingston, Forty Township, which became Forty Fort, Wilkes-Barre, Plymouth, and then Pittstown.
And that's interesting because I had someone take me a while ago to Dennison House, and the first thing he said to me was, because I'm from New York, the Hudson Valley, and he says, doesn't this look like Connecticut Hudson Valley? And I said, yeah, what's it doing here? He said, boy, do you have a story to learn. And so here we are in this house as well, which is very much like what we find in New York, Long Island, in that area with the original home with the big hearth. This was a big hearth for that time.
This was a very big hearth, you know, and...
And the oven area, I don't know if people realize, but, you know, they did bake bread and things in an oven, and the oven is off to the side, so this all heats up, and you have a stone oven, or, you know, what do we call the pizza now? Brick oven pizza.
Yes.
Right? They have their brick oven bread that they would make.
It functions exactly the same way. The stone that this particular hearth is made out of actually is the same stone that the Wyoming Monument is made out of.
It is.
They came from the same quarry. It's now defunct. It was across the river in what is now Plains.
And the whole family really socialized and did everything around the hearth.
Yes.
It was the center of their life.
There would be a fire going the entire day. They would use it for heat. They would use it for cooking. They would
have food out on the sideboard, right? And in the evenings they'd sit together and read or sew or whatever they were doing.
And you can get a decent amount of light from it as well. I mean, obviously you still have candles, but you wouldn't need to rely on them as heavily when you have a big roaring fire going.
But this is a nice size home for that time.
Yes, this was nice.
And very New Englandy.
Very New Englandy. Their claim was from the bank of the river, which you can't see anymore because there's the airport now, to what they were calling the Wolf's Den. It's a section of Abrams Creek now. We're not exactly sure where it is because we've rerouted Abrams Creek dozens of times over the years. But it's about a mile as the crow flies that way. And then it was 300 acres wide. So from the river to Abrams Creek, then about 300 acres wide.
And then the next grant was Denison.
The next grant further south was Denison as well. So they were neighbors, and which is just to put the distance into perspective.
Well, this is just stunning. Thank you so much, Mark, for spending this time with me today.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I so appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. Luzerne County Historical Society. If you Google us, our website's one of the first things that come up. It's luzernehistory.org. We're also on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on Threads. We're on everything. So follow us for that, and reach out and get in touch and come see this house. Come see the Denison house. Come see our museum.
Great. Thank you, Mark.